All right, this is Java Midterm Review Packet 2, which are the larger programming problems that you would do on a computer. I'm going to step you through problem 2, which is an auction bidding object. So whenever you're doing these problems, especially if you're supposed to be creating your own object, what you want to do is you want to read down the test code and imagine what are all of the requirements for the code that you're going to write. So I'm going to show you the process that I would go through if I were solving this problem on a computer. So here is the test code that's the same as the problem statement that I just drug off the screen. So I'm creating a class called bidCounter, and I know that a class needs to have three important kinds of things. It needs to have, so here's my public class bidCounter. I know I need fields, which are the instance variables. I know I need a constructor, and I know I need methods. So I'm going to try and figure out what fields do I need, what variables does my object need. So what you have to do is you have to really imagine what is this object supposed to do. So it looks like I'm creating a bidCounter with an input President Obama's favorite hat. And then I name my counter, and then I have it run methods called acceptBid. So it looks like acceptBid has two inputs, Mr. C and 100, and this means that Mr. C is going to bid $100. And then a duck bids $5,000, and then Mr. D bids $35. And then I'm allowed to ask my counter to display the top two bids. And so that's going to display who bid and how much they bid for the top two. And it should update itself. So now if Bill Gates bids way more than anybody, and I display top two again, now the top two have changed. Now the top two are Bill Gates and this duck. So this should tell me a whole bunch of methods that my object needs to support. And I should also start to guess at what variables do I need to be able to do this. It needs to keep track of the top two bids and the people who bid, because I know that I need to display them when I display top two. So over here, I'm going to start to create some fields. I'm going to create a string for top bid. I'm going to create a double for top bid amount and a double for second bid amount. So that's for like how much money in the top bid and the second bid. And I know I also need to know who did it, so I'll create a string for top bid name and a string for second bid name. You might choose to name these differently, but this is like who was the top bidder and who was the second bidder. All right, well, I don't think I need any other information. You know, as long as my constructor is accepting an input, it looks like it's like what the object that's being bid on is supposed to be. Let's go ahead and save that into a variable also. So I'll have a string called auction item. All right, so now I need my constructor. I know that the way the constructor looks is public, and then there's no return type, not even void. And then the name of the constructor is the same as the name of the class. So for me, that's bidCounter. And then I know I've got to give it whatever inputs it's supposed to take. So how do I know what the input should be? Well, if it's up to you, you can make whatever you want here. But in this case, I've given you the tester code, so you know that it has to work with this tester. And this tester is just giving it a single input here. So let's do that. We've got a single input that's a string, which I'll call name. And I'll take that name and I'll save it as the auction item. So I'll say this dot auction item equals name. All right, well, I know I'm supposed to be assigning starting values for all of these variables up here. So let's do that. I'll say top bid amount equals 0. This dot second bid amount equals 0. This dot top bid name is going to be no one. And this dot second bid amount, second bid name equals no one. It's sort of up to you what you want to initialize these to be. All right, so now let's look at methods. So I know I need all the methods that I'm trying to use in the tester. So I need an accept bid method, and I need a display top 2 method. So let's try and make the templates. Public something, public output, and then accept bid, and then input. And I know another one I'll have is public something, display top 2, and then something. So this is just like declaring the methods in the other review assignment we did. We know what we want the methods to be named. Now you just got to think about what's the input, what's the output. So accept bid looks like we've got 2 inputs, a string and a double. Because this 100, you might think it was an int, but here I have a double. And if you think about what this is supposed to represent, which is an amount of money for the bid, it makes sense that we would want it to be double. So I'm going to have 2 inputs, a string, which is who is doing the bidding, and then a double, which is the amount that they bid. Okay, and then the output is nothing. And the reason it's nothing is because what accept bid does is it will potentially change who the top bidder is or who the second bidder is. But it doesn't give an answer back to the tester. All it does is it records information inside itself. All right, so I'm going to postpone figuring out what to do on the inside here. Let's look at display top 2. So display top 2 is just supposed to display who the top 2 bidders are. So that means it doesn't need any input because the top 2 bidders are saved inside these variables up here. So I don't need to take an input for whoever's asking me to run the command. And the output is void because I'm just displaying things to the console. I'm not actually returning an answer. So display top 2, I just need a system.out.println statement where I'll say, let's look at the format it's supposed to look like. So it's supposed to have a name followed by an amount of money. So if I start with the top bidder, I've got top bid name plus a colon and then top bid amount. And then I want the word and then I'll have second bid name, and then I'll have a colon, and then I'll have second bid amount. Great. So that's done it. That was the easy method. So now all we've got to do is figure out how does accept bid work, where we'll look at the amount that's being bid and figure out should we be replacing anything up here. So I think what I need to do is I need to look at the amount that's getting bid and compare it to the current bid amounts to see if it's larger. So I'll say if amount is larger than the top bid amount. In that case, what do I want to do? I guess I want to save this bidder as the top bidder. But if I do that, who's the second bidder? In that case, the top bidder is going to become the second bidder. So if I save over top of the variables for the top bidder, I'll just destroy their values and I won't be able to save them as the second bidder. So I think before that, I want to save top bid and top bidder as the second bid and second bidder. And then I can save this new bid as the top bidder. All right, so that's one set of things that could happen. So otherwise, if the amount that got bid is not bigger than the top bidder, I want to check if the amount is greater than the second bid amount. And if it is, then I just want to save it as the second bid. Otherwise, I don't want to do anything because the amount bid wasn't large enough to be top or second bid. All right, so what I'm doing right now, I'd also recommend that you do this. You want to think logically about the things that you want your program to do. And so that's why we type pseudocode. It's this mixture of kind of the logical structure of Java, but also English, so that you don't have to worry about the details of every single line. So I can now start filling in the pseudocode. So I'm going to save the top bid and the top bidder as the second bid and the second bidder. So I'm going to replace the second bid amount, and it's going to be what the top bid amount used to be. and I'll save the second bid name, or rather I'll save the top bid name over top of the second bid name. So in other words, the top bidder is now the second bidder because we're just about to replace the top bidder with this new person. All right, so now let's do that. So that means the top bid amount is going to be this new amount that just got bid, and the top bid name is going to be who? The person who just did the bidding. All right, so that part's done. So now let's do this part. If the amount bid was greater than the second bid amount, then I just want to replace who's the second bidder. So I'll replace second bid amount with amount, and I'll replace second bid name with name. Oh, I called it who. Okay, so I've got accept bid, I've got display top 2. Let's go back to the tester. Great. So the whole purpose of you having the computer is so that you can actually run your code and see if it works and debug it a little bit. So let's run it and see if it works. Here I got a duck is bidding $5,000 and Mr. C, and then here, okay, so that's what I'm expecting to see based on the tester. So if you wanted to, you could continue to try and change these. So let's do this. I'm going to have another bidder accept bid, and so Hobo is going to bid, let's see, Hobo is going to bid almost as much as Bill Gates, but not quite, so more than anybody else. So this should keep Bill Gates in slot 1, but it's just going to replace the person who was in second, which was the duck. So let's do that. So this looks like, I'm sorry. So I thought it didn't work, but looking back at my tester, I'm only displaying the top 2 before the Hobo bid. So I also want to display the top 2 after the Hobo bids. All right, cool. So this seems to have worked. I've replaced Bill Gates, and there we got Hobo. All right. So I think I've tested all the possibilities, so I hope this has helped. Good luck.